Do it again. Do it again. Mock us, everybody. Right hand on top. Yeah, there you go. Four. 1, 2, 3, 4. Be ready like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Swallow. 1. Is this right? Nah. When I ain't buying grata, do business right.
Yeah, my name is Anthony Baggette. I'm from Portsmouth, Ohio, in southern Ohio, on the Ohio River. A close-knit, tight-knit black community, which there was a whole number of these along the Ohio River. I went to school in Portsmouth, Ohio. Then I went to Miami University to study psychology and theater and a little bit of music. Then I went to work at various places working with children. I went to Cincinnati, worked at St. Joseph Orphanage. I was in New York working with gangs and various other places. Anyway, when I went to D.C., was working for the Washington, D.C. Mental Health Department, met a young lady who was from Berlin. She said, well, you know, Anthony, if you feel like it, you know, come and visit in Berlin. I said, okay. Year goes by, then I had to get out of America. It didn't matter where she lived at. If she lived in London, Amsterdam, didn't matter. I was leaving America. I wasn't coming to Germany, I was leaving America. Now this was in December 19th, 1981. The wall was up. They had the American sector, the French sector, the British sector, and the Russians in East Berlin. It was, you can't compare it to what Berlin is now. And it was culture shock, you know, for me. You know, I grew up in America, and in the late 50s, early 60s, and through the 70s, that's where I was at. And coming here and seeing all the GIs, for example, the British GIs, the American GIs, the French GIs, and then going to East Berlin. It was, you know, it was a culture shock. You know, going to the clubs, in which they had a number of clubs. They had clubs for African Americans, had clubs for the Africans that were here, had clubs for the white Americans. It was a violent time between the Americans, white Americans, and the black Americans. You had rednecks, Ku Klux Klan members here at a club called the White Horse. Then you had the clubs for the brothers and sisters, the Talk of the Town, the Chic, the Jungle, Sugar Shack, Silver Wings, and that's just a few off the top of my head. So it was just, I don't know how to explain that, just different.
By the roaches from America. The reason I call them roaches is because when you find one, you'll find 100, you know?
You know, I've also been asked, you know, do I consider myself African American, Black American, you know, or just plain American? You know, as American, I really, you know, ain't so crazy about being associated with America, period. You know, it's embarrassing sometimes to say I'm an American. African American, I use that term mostly when I'm around white people. You know, I don't think I have to say African American around my other brothers. You know, we just say Black American. If we talk about that, we just say Black American because we take it for granted we black and our ancestors came from Africa. So to make that clear distinction, I'll say, well, to white people, that's my ethnic background. As far as back as, you know, my ancestors go as Africa. You know, talking to Americans, you know, I'm just a Black American. To distinguish myself from, you know, white Americans, basically. I know very little about Africa. You know, I know a lot about America and Americans. So, you know, I'm a Black American. In reality, what I want to be called, basically, is just a man, you know, period. You know, but that's not going to happen in my lifetime, you know. But as long as I got to identify it's with black and an African. So that's what I identify with. Being born in America, in Southern Ohio in 1952. Well, and from in Portsmouth, as I said, we had black doctor. We had one of the first black, if not the first black police chief in America. I didn't have a white teacher until I was in the 7th or 8th grade. So we had our own teachers, barbershops, car mechanics, and we had to build our own swimming pool because we weren't allowed to go swimming. And we ended up either going to Ironton, which is like, 35, 40 miles away, or you went to the Ohio River. And when a lot of people black folks started drowning, well, we had enough of fighting to go swimming. So my parents in that generation, they built our own swimming pool, which is still there. So with that, I grew up with a sense of community and the value in that and the strength in that and the pride and dignity and integrity that came with having your own, instead of relying upon somebody else to do it for you. And we especially relied upon the American government. So this was in the 50s. My first recollection was when I realized, we had all black. When I played basketball, I realized, okay, my goodness, there's all white basketball teams. I didn't dawn on me that we were all black because that's all I knew. And then you start realizing, let's say 1960, you start realizing the racism. You couldn't avoid it. It was every place. Trying to go to school, football teams. We had all a lot of black players, but no black cheerleaders. Never had a black coach. And so these are things that I thought, should be corrected. We deserve that. I can say it was actually a good experience. Portsmouth, Ohio was probably at that time one of the most progressive little cities in America. And we didn't have too much fight. We had, your normal, high school fights or whatever, but it wasn't like, we hated each other. And maybe that was because we kept to ourselves for the most part. We didn't, we hung out with ourselves, and we had one little place that we was go dancing. That was really integrated. It was black and white folks, so, but that was the younger generation. And also we had, a skating ring where black people could only go skating on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So you had that. But we tried to overcome that. And how do we overcome that is, why go to places where you're not wanted? Just because you can say we skated with these people, or we went to Woolworths and say we had a cup of coffee at Woolworths. That doesn't mean a lot to me. What means more to me in my community was that we got our own place. We don't have to go to Woolworths and get beat up to sit down next to a white person and to have a cup of coffee. We know it's all right, but is it worth getting beat up over? Okay, so just have our own, which we did. Clubs. And so when I came here, I brought that attitude and that way of thinking here. And what I think shocked me more was that it wasn't here, even though there was black people here, but that sense of community and, having something our own that we owned and not always have to go and ask a person for a job, have something that you can create jobs for your own people. So that was, my whole attitude. And when I was at Miami, I was part of the Kumba Players, which is one of the first black theaters at that time, in America. And we traveled we went to mostly black universities, Central State, Gremlin, Wright State, Oberlin, and we had, it was all black actors, called the Kumba Players, all black actors with Wilson Greer. He and I were the co-founders. So with that also, I had that, all through my life until I came here. And when I came here, it was to get away from the reason was to get away from America, from the police brutality, the drugs, the constant anxiety of living in America as a young black man. And let's say in 1968, had the Vietnam War going on. It was just a horrific time to be an American, especially a black American. Only place I'd ever been before I left America was Jamaica. That's it. So growing up there, that's what I knew. That was my comfort zone. And then coming here, leaving America, and coming here was just doing that. Your anxiety level is so high because you have no idea what to expect. You don't speak the language. Around just all Germans, which a lot of them didn't like you. You had the American GIs, the French GIs, the British GIs, a big wall around the city. You couldn't just come and go as you please. My goodness, if you could imagine that, like if you just could imagine moving from New York to Miami, don't know nobody, know one person, so you're anxious, of course. So with that in mind, coming here, getting on the plane and flying here, I was like, okay, what am I getting myself into? So, okay, the first thing I looked for was some other black folks. Who could I communicate with? It's hard to communicate with people who you can't understand them because they speak another language, and let alone, come from a whole different culture. And then, like I said, the black GIs, I don't know. Some of them were cool. Some of them would just join the army just to get out of America, to get insurance, but didn't really have, we couldn't really communicate. And then, they had the discos that you could go to, that was a culture shock. First disco I went to here was called the Talk of the Town. I go in there, it's all black men and all white German women. That was a culture shock to me. I never seen that, and the owner was black, and then there's some other discos. But anyway, what I learned in America, and I brought that with me. So it was very difficult to find people here who shared that same frame of mind, that same attitude about life, that same attitude about community, and about theater and art and music and having our own. There's 3 or 4 people. But anyway, I started meeting some musicians, Jay Oliver, Floyd Brothers, James Chaney, and we used to hang out at a place called Bobanosa up in Moabit, and Bob Lennox was there, and so we used to perform together. And you have to realize that at that time, saying something bad about America, you could get in trouble. This is during the Cold War. They had literally, Berlin had more spies than any other city in the world, and including black GI spies, and there's a few here still that were informers. Their whole job was to find people that were bad apples, so to speak, in the military, people that were against the war, or, and if you're a communist, you surely were watched by the Americans. So you had a lot of people who spoke out behind closed doors, but didn't have the nerve to speak out in public because they was, in the military. There wasn't no big demonstrations. The most demonstrations were at the place called America House. Those were the anti-American demonstrations, and there was one every weekend. Anti-America, down with America, America get out of this place, America get out of this. It was just all over. So to speak out politically, as a GI, they didn't do it. So, and there weren't that many other, people who came here not in the military. And so to find those few people, oh my goodness, where they hung out at. So I was fortunate enough to meet some people just because I was the bartender at the Firmenberger Steinplatz. So my first job here was mopping the floor at an office. That was my first job. Then I became the bartender, and then the cultural program manager. Then I started meeting the black artists that were here, and some GIs who decided to stay here when their tour of duty expired. Now, a lot of fine musicians, fine writers, fine, but there was still something missing. And in the overall scheme of things, and what that was missing was a sense of really community, overall community, because a lot of these guys were going back, and a lot of them, were in culture shock. Things were just a different culture, and if you didn't want to hang out at discos, hey, wasn't too many places you could go. So we created the Barbarossa, where we could go discuss who we are, our lives, what kind of legacy are we going to leave, and those were great, I think, mental stimulating times here in Berlin when the wall was still up. Now, when the wall came down, it took a little time for that. Well, so I got here, and like, as I said, looking for places to go. Besides the Barbarossa, there was a place called the Blues Cafe, started in 1981 by a man by the name of Cornelius Robinson. Everybody knows him as Robbie. So he was from Mississippi. So he had this club, little street in Schoenberg, and single acts, guitar players. He tried to give a lot of art, he did, and tried to give them some kind of work. Well, unfortunately, at that time, he had a heart attack. He's still with us. He's 81 years old. Hey, he's still with us. So he had a heart attack, so he couldn't work anymore. Didn't want to work. And some other people, took over the club. It didn't work out, so he asked me, because they were going to sell the building, and would I take over the club and make sure it goes out with a good name and, not in debt. I said, okay. So we did that. Like in 1999, but there's a whole gap in between, let's say, 81 and 1999. The wall came down, Berlin changed, and there was a lot of artists, African artists who had studied music in Russia. They came to Berlin. East Berlin was wide open, so the music scene was very vibrant then. And that's about the time we opened 1999, we opened the Blues Cafe. And before that, from, let's say, when the wall came down, it was 89, from 90 through the 90s, well, that was one of the most, between the black artists that was here, that was one of the most, musically, it was great, but the hate and fighting between the artists and the bias and prejudice between African Americans, Africans, between Africans from Nigeria, Africans from the Cameroon, Africans from Gambia. You still have people that were wish for the communism to come back, and a lot of Americans who were in the GIs, they stayed. They were very talented musicians, a lot of them, but they argued about everything. Backstabbing, as much as I hate to say it, cutthroat. Getting in fights in bars, and then take out and opportunities presented right to them. Because you could get a club in East Berlin for next to nothing. We performed at a place called Delicious Donuts. The guy was paying let's say the equivalent of $250 a month, okay? And he got that. We tried to get clubs because the reason we couldn't, nobody wanted to work together. Everybody wanted to do it. I'll do it this, I'll trust him, and this and that. It was horrible. So we lost a lot of opportunities to be a community that were there and to benefit financially, economically, and still have a legacy that we can leave to our kids now. You have to imagine, this is almost 30 years ago. Now I'm sitting here now in 2022, and there ain't one black club in this city that ain't got a black bartender, a black manager, let alone a black owner. So when we had the Blues Cafe, we had that, both of them, to make sure that we had something that was owned by us. We controlled the situation, and that became a threat, to the Germans, the racists, here's some black people, we own this cafe. So the police used to come, raid us all the time, never found no drugs. And that was another thing, police never found no drugs. They strip search us sometimes, we got photographs of this. But the black people, some of the same people who played there, who I played with, started a rumor that we got busted because they named the people. They named people who weren't even there when some of this stuff supposedly happened. But anyway, that we were snorting cocaine, smoking reefer in the bar with the door open. I'm thinking, I mean, really, who gonna believe that about me? I'm that dumb, So that's what black people were saying, which had nothing to do with realities. My point being, sometimes since I've been here, we've been our worst enemies. You got the Afro-Germans who a lot of them don't like black Americans, and it still goes on to this day. And I don't understand why, that is. And we do Black History Month, at least we try to, and there's more white people who come to Black History Month than black people. At this time, and when I first came here, and the reason I stayed here was because I saw the benefits of being here. I could work, I could perform, which I did a lot, I didn't have to worry about too much of getting murdered by the police or murdered by, gangs, going to jail for next to nothing. And and then, now I got kids, they grown now, but you kind of establish roots, and I couldn't find no reason why to go back to America. I just couldn't. And so now I'm glad I didn't, but what I do regret, is that we didn't do more here in the last 40 years than we have now. We got no black dance company, we got no black theater, we got no black we got one black radio station, which I must say is a joke, we got no black magazine. We got the Black Curriculum on television, but that's on cable and don't nobody watch it. You got a bougie Negro there running it, so I'm just being upfront. His name is Donald Griffin. You can find it, and then we got nothing. We got no recording studios. And so what have we achieved? In all these years that I've been here, okay, we got the Clear Blue Water, our own association. We got our own basketball club, which is ours, we got all black coaches, they get paid. So, I've done a lot of theater here, sponsored myself, produced it, directed it, and hoping that, somebody else would, take that baton and run with it, and carry on that legacy. So we got an association called Clear Blue Water. We got money in the bank. We can't find nobody responsible and reliable enough to we give them the money. Hey, are you gonna do a sign this paper? This belongs to you. You got money in the bank, you got a reputation, all the things we've done over the last 20 some years, it's already there. You ain't gotta do nothing but continue, Our basketball program, we didn't have a lot of good players. We got trophies. We got well respected. Now here I am at 69 years old, trying to get some of the brothers and sisters at least to come to practice and help. That's it. Just can you come and help? I'm 69 years old. Been doing this for a long time. I kind of want to retire as a game coach. So I'm like, okay, can somebody come by and help? Can't find nobody. We got games. I'm wondering where are these people's parents? I wouldn't think about allowing my son to go play basketball and don't know who the coach is. It wouldn't cross my mind to do that, So I'm wondering how come these parents don't come by and meet us and see who we are and, how we deal with these kids. We're mentors, to these kids. And so come to the games. I got parents who ain't never seen their kids play a game of basketball. And I'm talking about 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old kids. And I'm wondering, why not? What are you doing on Saturday or Sunday? I got people who call me a friend, and I'm asking them, hey man, come to a game and check out these kids. I ain't never seen them. So I'm just wondering, why not? Is it me or is it them? Or is it just, I don't know, just selfishness, egotism, Okay, let me say, let's jump around to 1989 when the wall came down. Complete chaos. Complete, and I do mean chaos. A lot of jubilations because the wall came down, and a lot of Eastern Europeans, came to Berlin, as well as a lot of artists, a lot of opportunities. But with the jubilations came a lot of hate. Nazis went crazy. They took advantage of the chaos, throwing people off S-Bahns, getting beat up. I got stabbed myself, getting beat up, running into clubs, beating everybody up. Beating people up on the S-Bahn, the areas you were scared to go. Even when they had the World Cup here, they had a no-go zone where they advised, if you're coming here for the World Cup, don't go here, So that caused a lot of people, that's when, Black History Month got started in 1991, 92. We felt the need to unite, so to speak, to protect ourselves. Now, as far as the Africans and Black Americans, African Americans, I think we understood, the necessity of working together and trying to help each other. There were a number of places where, a number of clubs that we could play at. We a lot of times played together. Samba Sox, Suleiman Touré, Wusi Tusi, Fawasi Abdul Khalik, Charles Wynn, Loomis Green, Jody Carlo, myself, Sharifa. We all performed at a place called the Delicious Donuts on every Sunday. And we were able to pay people more than they're getting paid now. As far as why and what changed between the Africans and African Americans, I really don't know, but something changed, Then there became, places where Africans performed at, and then Americans were playing a lot of jazz and funk and stuff, and there are places they could play at. One of the few places that both genders were playing at was the Junction Bar, but they didn't pay no money. Brothers are getting ripped off left and right, and they even have a policy at one point that if you're a single black man, you couldn't get in the club. So that was when I stopped playing there, period. I didn't play there very often, but in some sense of way, there was starting to be a little unity, not much, but a little bit, and a lot of times because of the violence. Now, what the overall German society, of course, they wanted to sweep it under the ground, and we even had this what is called Guardians of the Angels, guardian angels. They were here riding in U-Bahn because there's so much violence on public transportation that the guardian angels came all the way from New York to protect people riding U-Bahn. So you would think that would let everybody know, hey, we need to really be together, but it didn't. Last 40 years of my life, 35, 37, 36, something like this, been in Germany. I came here in 81, went back to America in 85, and then came back to Germany in the end of 88. My experience in America at that time, during the mid-80s, is fearful. The crack epidemic, going to prisons are full. I was just 1 foot out of jail for being killed. So I came back to Berlin. So when I came here a little bit before the wall came down, I made my, connections, has a lot of ups and downs here, tried to survive on, playing music, which I did for quite a while. Tried to do my best to promote black culture, regardless of African or American, black culture through poetry, theater, music, dance, and the need for us to work as one. Had a lot of successes with that and some failures. And one overall failure was the Black History Month. People ask me, "Oh, Anthony, why do you think it's a failure?" Well, because it no longer exists here. And it was a failure because we didn't take advantage of it. We got together in February. That was it. We did nothing the rest of the year. So my whole purpose of doing Black History Month was to say, okay, let's start this in February and continue it on the rest of the year. You can't live on one performance in February, but that never happened. So we started the Look at Here magazine, which we still do. We video as much as we can. We do our culture and sports exchange where we travel with our players and students. We went to Chicago, London, Prague. I don't know, what else one person can do. So in these past 40 years, it's been pleasurable and miserable sometimes. The pleasant thing is the young kids, youth that we've been able to help and open their eyes. And now a lot of them are doctors, lawyers. We even got some police officers. We work with basically Turkish and Afro-German, I guess you could say. I don't like to use the term people of color. So we got a lot of those. And we, talk to the parents. We have a Community Unity Day every year where we get all the parents, all the players, present, past, and in the future, I hope, to come to. We barbecue, play games, just get to know each other, which I think is what's missing. So that in itself, has done wonders. I've talked to white kids who never had a conversation with a black man, never, and may never have another one after they, stop talking to me. So, these things, the kids will remember going to Chicago with 15 teenagers and, living in South Chicago, talking to kids, interviewing kids. We videoed the whole thing. These things they will remember forever. And that's one thing I can say I'm really proud of. That's one of our, I hope, many legacies that people will remember these things. What we tried to do. Our basketball association, which we run, control, has done a lot for younger people. The older people, I don't know so much, but I've kind of given up a lot of times on, some of the younger generation. They don't listen. They think they know it all, and as a person my age, will be 70 my next birthday, black men, women my age, we walk in history books, learn how to boycott, learn how to be, speak up, don't be afraid, and, make sure somebody's got your back. And that's what's lacking. We so much into our own lives that we don't even notice sometimes if somebody needs a little bit of help or that person needs help, is too, proud, vain to ask for help. And that's what's lacking here. When I grew up in Portsmouth, everybody helped everybody. You couldn't go no place with somebody not knowing who you were, not knowing your parents. If you needed help, food, it was there. Here, I don't know, doesn't exist. We try to start an artist emergency fund. All everybody got to do is put in €5 a month. We could, have a fund that we control. So we did it ourselves. We still got money in the bank. Just in case artists might need some money in hard times. And these are hard times. That's looking ahead. Here, you ask a brother, what's your plans for the future? They look at their watch, so what can you do? And the only thing I can say we're doing now is we want to have May is Black Future Month. That's our next project, so to say, not project, next thing that we want to do. The past is the past. If we don't learn anything from the past, the future looks bleak. So that's what we're looking forward to, is the future in a realistic with my eyes wide open, you know, and it's a pity that I don't even rely upon brothers sometimes. It's a shame, but I love my brothers and I understand what they've been going through. I love my sisters. We just need to get together, that's it, and talk and learn from our mistakes and don't get all defensive, you know, about it. Just learn from it. All right.
Hey, I'm Valentin, and I know Anthony since I'm 9 years old. And well, for me, he was always also not just a coach, always like a type of father also. And now it's 10 years ago since I know him, and he's a very passionate coach. That's for sure. And he always not just taught me how to play basketball, but just also how to be in a mood where I just can relax and be a team player. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Mein Name ist Orçun, ich bin 18 Jahre alt, ich bin Spieler der U20. Ich kenne Anthony seit 3-4 Monaten. Er ist ein sehr guter Coach, er bringt uns viele gute Sachen bei, er ist ein Coach mit viel Energie, er versucht uns alles so schnell wie möglich beizubringen und es macht immer wieder Spaß bei ihm zu trainieren.
I joined the team in last 2 years. Anthony was my coach for last years and this years. He improved my game, especially in defense. He is really good in defense and sometimes a little bit hard, but I mean he is really good coach and he really helped me to become the best version of myself.
At this final hour, it is time to say goodbye to one of Berlin's unseen heroes. Anthony Baggette, a friend, a father, a husband, a musician, an activist, a human rights advocate. He arrived in Berlin in 1981, an Afro-American spirit who carried his music, his courage, and a deep sense of justice into the heart of this city. From mentoring youth in the streets of Kreuzberg to standing with refugees and cultural minorities around the world, Anthony lived his life in service of something greater. He faced racism head-on, with grace, with rhythm, and with a quiet, fearless strength. Through his actions, he showed what it means to be human, what it means to care when no one else will. On November 24th, 2023, that voice fell silent, but his legacy, his fight, his music will continue to echo. His was a life of meaning, a melody woven through struggle, solidarity, and soul. Now his chapter has closed, but the story he wrote in the hearts of those he touched will live on. Here lies Anthony Baggette, not just a man, but a movement, not just a name, but a song. Rest in power, Anthony, your rhythm lives on.